Takuma is a lonely and disgustingly pathetic gamer who finds himself in a game world where he becomes an incredibly hot and powerful demon. On arrival, he unknowingly acquires 2 freaky slave girls and goes on to dominate this world as the Demon Lord. Before this, the sweaty idiot spent his time playing his favorite game. After winning a very important match, he decides that it is time to up his game by leveling up his gear. Just as he is about to do this, his computer screen blanks out like his brain and reveals a blazingly bright screen. The brightness causes him to pass out. When he wakes up, he finds himself in the world of the game he was just playing. Surprisingly, he had become his in-game character Diablo. Looking around, he finds 2 freaky bitches. One of them happens to be an elf with a banging body and huge dangling babies named Shara, while the other is a demi-human with not so much named Rem. The 2 girls had tried to summon a being to aid them in their dream to become adventurers. Unfortunately, their summons gave them the dumb-headed Diablo. Upon realizing this, the clueless idiot is shocked to his bones that he is now in the game world called Cross Reverie. As he spends his time thinking about this and trying to figure out how this is possible, the nagging start arguing. Since he was a pro loser in the area of communication, he doesn't know how to talk to them and make them stop. Eventually, he gets angry and blurts out a command, ordering them to stop. At first, they ignore him, but the command awakens a sort of magic that forces them to comply. This magic leaves them with a collar around their necks. This means they have now become Diablo's slaves. Upon realizing this, they find it very shocking, since they were the ones who summoned Diablo, which meant that he should be their slave. At that moment, Diablo remembers that he is wearing an anti-magic ring, which possesses that power to nullify any form of magic thrown at him, and reflected too. The idea of having these freaky in his harem pops into his mind. However, since he didn't want them to be his slave, they decided to go to the town to find a solution to this and also to register themselves as adventurers in the Adventurer Guild. After that, they go to get a room for the night, and Diablo shockingly realizes that this could be the moment he gets laid, since he would be sleeping in the same room with the girls. Since he has no social skills, the stupid idiot is unable to capitalize on the opportunity. With the sorry loser's failure out of the way, they try to figure out how to take the slave collars off. While doing so, they hear a knock on the door. On opening it, Diablo sees a sexy mage with lively balloons, with some followers. Entering the room, she introduces herself as Celestine, the head of the mage association in the town. In order to have a conversation, they leave the room and head downstairs. There, Celestine questions Rem in a pretty suspicious manner. When Diablo finds this strange, he points it out, and one of Celestine's followers shuts him up in a very rude way. At first, Diablo complies, thinking he is the loser he has always been. However, when he remembers just how powerful he is, he snaps back at the delusional fool. He promises to make an example out of him when he gets the chance. After Celestine leaves, he questions Rem about this secret, which she shared with Celestine. When she refuses to tell him about it, he takes her to the room where they can be alone. While we expect the dumbhead to seize the chance to clap this, he goes on to ask about the secret. However, she refuses, forcing him to think of a way to torture the information out of her. All his empty brain could come up with was to play with her very sensitive ears. This flips Rem's switch on and causes her to make happy noises. She reveals that she is scared that he will leave her after she tells him the secret. In response, he assures her that he will never leave her since he is the most powerful person in the world. On hearing this, Rem is excited. She ends up telling him everything. Apparently, she has the soul of the actual demon lord Krebskalm in her. On hearing this name, Diablo remembers it as the name of the actual demon lord while he was playing the game. However, after immersing himself in the game for a long time, he eventually became the most powerful player and ended up getting the title of demon lord for himself. Furthermore, Rem reveals that Cells has been helping her with a way to get the demon lord out of her body since her death will lead to his release. Just then, Diablo promises to find a way to get the soul of the demon lord out of her body and crush him if it comes to it. When Rem hears this, she starts crying in appreciation, and Diablo has no way to comfort her. Later that night, Diablo heads out for a walk and is met by some followers of Cells, who had just finished drinking their senses out. The one who had insulted him earlier decides that this is the perfect opportunity to teach him a lesson, and ends up summoning a level 30 monster to attack Diablo. The monster breathes fire on Diablo, but he casually blocks the attack since the monster is on a very low level compared to him. even though level 30 is way more than average in this world. In retaliation, he blasts the monsters to bits, leaving no crumbs for the rude idiot to pick. This causes him to realize that he now possesses all the powers he had gathered while playing the game. He informs the fool that he is level 150, and this makes him realize just how close he was to dining with his ancestors.
It was at this moment that he knew he f***ed up.
On hearing this, the other mages with him run for their dear lives. Leaving him alone to face the consequences of his foolish actions, however, Diablo chooses to spare his sorry life and let him go. The next day, Diablo, Shira, and Rem go to complete their registration as adventurers. Apparently, Rem was registered, leaving the other two to complete theirs. Since Diablo was too dumb to read the language in this world, he makes it seem like it was undermining for him to fill a form and orders Shira to do it for him, leaving us with two dumbass idiots in disguise. After filling the form, they are made to touch a mirror, which would reveal their magic levels. Shira, who had been curious to know this, happily touches it and is sad to know that her level is 30. She had hoped she would be higher, but Diablo believes this more than the average level in this world. Rem happened to be at level 40, leaving Diablo to check his level. When he does, his ugly face causes the mirror to lose control and break. Sensing this, the guild master named Sylvie runs out. Realizing just how powerful Diablo is, she falls for him at first sight and takes him to her office. Of course, Rem and Shira follow them. In her office, Sylvie reveals that Diablo is way more powerful than her, which makes her skeptical about letting him join the guild. She believes he would not take orders from someone he is more powerful than. However, Diablo insists that he wants to work, and she is forced to hand them a quest which she believes is suitable for someone on his level. They soon realize that their quest is to hunt down a giant anaconda in the man-eating forest. When they arrive at this forest, Shira discovers that they are being followed. Surprised, Diablo wishes to know how she knows, and she informs him that the elf's senses are sharper than that of any other being. She points out the positions of the people following them, and Diablo uses a form of magic called Ember Rain to blast them out of hiding. Shockingly, the followers turn out to be elven soldiers. The soldiers reveal that the dumb-headed Shira is actually their princess.
Stop the cap!
She had run away from the elven kingdom because she didn't want to marry her brother who only needed her to bear him in hair. Weird, right? Seeing the collar on Shira's neck, the elves assume that Diablo forcefully made her his slave. While they rant, Diablo tries to figure out how they were able to lie and wait for them. Just then, he realizes that it could have been the idiot he defeated earlier who told the elves about Shira to get back at him. Meanwhile, Shira insists on staying with Diablo and Rem. She tries to convince the elves that she isn't Diablo's slave, but they see the slave collar as strong evidence against her claim. This leaves them with no choice but to attack Diablo in a bid to Isekai'd him and free their princess. They shoot their arrows at him, but it has absolutely no effect on his thick skin. As much as this shocks them to the bone, their leader steps up, feeling like a handsome demigod. He shoots at Diablo with a very powerful arrow called Tempest Arrow, expecting to finish him off once and for all. However, to their greatest surprise, Diablo remains standing. Just then, the arrow falls to the ground accompanied by their self-esteem. In retaliation, he announces himself as the Demon Lord, and uses a form of magic called Frisia to bring them to their knees. This attack forces the bastard who had led them here out of hiding. Not much of a shock, he happens to be the foolish mage he defeated the night before, just as he predicted. He had tricked them by submitting the quest at the guild, in order to have his revenge on Diablo with the help of the elves, since he was too much of a weakling to do it alone. Being a crybaby, he runs away. Diablo lets him leave. He spares the lodge of the elves since they had been missiled, and Shira informs them that she doesn't wish to come back home since she is happy with Rem and Diablo. The elves heed the wishes of their princess and return back to their kingdom. The trio return to the inn, and since Rem wasn't around, Diablo is left alone with Shira. Being a total loser, he finds it hard to keep a conversation with her. When Shira hears him talk about how Rem needs him, she gets jealous and informs him that she needs him too. She jumps on him, and while trying to stop her, he ends up grabbing her dangling cannons. The two remain in this position until Rem opens the door and assumes that they have just begun a clapping festival. The following day, they get handed another quest by Sylvie. This time, she assures them that it isn't an ambush, since this quest was handed to her by Cells herself. Since this quest had come from Cells, Rem is skeptical about it. She chooses not to join them on the quest, and Diablo respects her decisions. He lets her stay back at the inn while he embarks on the quest with Shira. On their way out, they run into a handsome adventurer named Emil. As the #1 contender for knight in shining armor, he is obsessed with protecting damsels in distress. He also happens to be the strongest adventurer in this guild. Unfortunately, his brain isn't as bright as his armor, as he challenges Diablo to a duel for enslaving 2 damsels. Wanting to silence this dummy, Diablo agrees. When the fight begins, Emil immediately charges at Diablo with his sword, hoping to land a blow, but Diablo dodges his attack swiftly. On the heat of battle, he realizes that Emil is not as weak as he had thought. At that moment, Emil tries to use a spell to finish him off. Just before he is able to complete this spell, Diablo blasts him off his feet, winning the duel. Getting back up, he wants to go again, but this time Rem and Shara explain the situation to him. They let him know that they were the ones who summoned Diablo and became victims of the enslavement spell due to their mistakes. They reveal that Diablo is helping them to find a way to remove the collars. When he hears this, he leaves them alone. Later on, Diablo and Shara get to a castle to complete their quest, which involves delivering refreshments. When they get there, they realize that something bad is about to happen. They see every guard at the gate running in panic. When they seek to know what is happening, one of the guards reveals that an army of evil demons called Fallen are approaching the castle. Hearing this, Diablo is shocked since he never thought the Fallens could attack as a group. At this moment, he realizes just how useless these soldiers are against the Fallen, who are very powerful demons. At first, he doesn't wish to involve himself with this battle. However, Shara pleads with him to help, and he ends up agreeing to do so. He takes command of the soldiers and orders them to close the bridge, leaving him alone to fight the entire army of Fallen.
It's about to go down.
Just then, Diablo takes his position outside the gate. When the first Fallen charges at him, he makes use of a magic blast to send him flying to the great beyond. As shocked as the others are, they continue to charge at him, but he easily blasts them away one after another. While the battle is going on, Rem meets with Sils. She had come to apologize about her followers' stupidity and to inquire about Diablo being the Demon Lord. In response, Rem informs her that Diablo is the Demon Lord from another world. While they talk, the dumb-headed follower runs in. He is angry that Sils fired him. This causes him to stab himself with an evil knife that transforms him into a Fallen. On the other hand, after ice-kang a bunch of Fallen, their commander, feeling like a top key, steps up. The in sexy armor walks up to Diablo, ready to unleash a furious attack. She introduces herself as Edelgard, and immediately charges at Diablo angrily. Meanwhile, Rem and Sils are able to flee the Fallen, but they eventually get to a dead end. There, he is about to attack them when Rem summons a powerful beast to defend them. Unfortunately, this beast is no match for the Fallen as he finishes it off in one punch. Just then, Emil arrives with some other adventurers to defend them. Back to the battle with Edelgard, fortunately, Diablo dodges all her attacks and being a gentleman, he doesn't retaliate. He urges her to make use of her most powerful attack, since all she has done was like child's play to him. Foolishly, she heeds his advice and goes ahead to use her most powerful attack, called Sacrificial Charge. This time, Diablo decides to take it head-on in order to break her spirit. After hitting Diablo with this attack, she assumes that she has silenced him for good. However, when the dust settles, she realizes that Diablo is no mere mortal. Seeing how scared she looks, he urges her to surrender. At that moment, a soldier calls him loudly. He informs him that a Fallen has entered the city and is after Rem and Sils. Hearing this, he quickly realizes that there is no more time to play since the Fallen had entered the city in order to Isekai Sils. This is due to the fact that she was the one holding up the protective barrier, preventing the Fallen from coming into the city. Immediately, he asks the Fallen to charge at him at once. When they foolishly do, he unleashes a very powerful magic that wipes them out in one strike. Surprisingly, with all the other Fallens gone, Edelgard remains alive, but wounded. Since she isn't much of a threat in this state, Diablo leaves the battlefield with Shara using teleportation magic. On the other hand, the Fallen had completely taken out all the adventurers Emil brought with him. Now, Emil is gravely wounded, but he stands his ground and is determined to protect the women no matter what. Just as the Fallen is about to finish him off, Diablo appears like a knight in shining armor. Seeing the dead adventurers and the half-dead Emil gets him very angry. He tells Emil that he would take it from here and steps up to teach this twisted bastard a lesson. He assures the Fallen that he is going to die, but the idiot is so confident that he would be the one to Isekai'd Diablo. He uses a form of powerful bullet magic on Diablo, who immediately reflects it, sending it back to him in full force. This injures the Ashol greatly, leaving Diablo with the perfect opportunity to finish him off. However, the fool goes ahead to use a more powerful gravitational magic, in hopes that this would end Diablo for good. This also gets reflected and used in tenfolds against him, leaving him with no other choice but to beg for his life. Ignoring him, Diablo fulfills his promise by sealing his demon soul in the Dark Realm for eternity. The next day, while Diablo tries to rest from the battle the day before, Shira comes jumping on him with just her bathsuit on. This makes him a hard guy and he is startled at the sight of her dangling balloons. Jealous, Rem pushes her off, and the two hold Diablo tightly, while rubbing her melons on him. At this point, Sylvie enters the room to inform them about a new quest. Apparently, the Elf Kingdom has issued a 10-day deadline for the return of Shira. Failure to do this, they have threatened to wage war against the humans. Due to this, Diablo is tasked with ending the war since he doesn't wish to give Shira's milky melons up. Also, Shira doesn't wish to return to her kingdom, so she begs Diablo to accept the quest and stop the war. Since they have accepted the quest, Sylvie takes them to the Lord of the City. He happens to be a very powerful fighter whose level is unknown. Due to this, Sylvia urges him to mind how he talks to the Lord and avoid announcing that he is Demon Lord as he always does. She urges him to check how he talks in front of the Lord since he can be very scary. This worries Diablo, who has a poor sense of communication. Shortly after, they get to the Lord's mansion and Sylvie announces their presence, referring to Diablo as the strongest adventurer that she has ever seen. She claims that he would be assisting them in preventing war with the Elf Kingdom. He seems less concerning about this and more concerned about ending the war. Before they leave, he asks them to introduce themselves and states that he is Lord Galford. While everyone does this, Diablo is left trying to figure out the perfect way to introduce himself without sounding like the demon lord he claims to be. When it gets to his turn, he only states that he is Diablo, and ends it there, which surprises everyone and pleases him. Unfortunately, the Lord reveals that he had heard that Diablo was the Demo Lord from another world. This flips a switch in his head, causing him to return to his ground and delusional self. He threatens to reduce the Lord to ashes to prove he is the Demon Lord. This shocks every one of them to the bones. However, Sylvie immediately steps in, revealing that it's all a joke Diablo likes to make from time to time. Buying this, Lord Galford lets it slide and hands him the responsibility of protecting the city and preventing this war at all costs. He shows them a map of the forest where the elves have been rumored to be hiding, estimating their number at about 100. While Sylvie doesn't see this as much, Lord Galford reveals that this isn't about their numbers, but the strategy the elves wish to employ. This is since elves are masters of hiding in trees to ambush enemies. Since he doesn't wish to have his soldiers die aimlessly, Lord Galford insists that Diablo goes ahead to settle things. While Diablo doesn't seem to buy this idea at first, the Lord reveals that they wouldn't be in this situation if only he hands over Shira to the elves. In response, Shira reveals that she has chosen not to return and stay here, because she doesn't get to be herself in the Elf Kingdom. She reveals that she doesn't want to have to live a life of luxury, but wants to be an adventurer. Surprisingly, Lord Galford understands her and lets her be. Also, since Shira belonged to him, Diablo reconsiders his stance and is determined to make sure Shira's wish of staying with them remains. Just then, Lord Galford introduces them to a royal emissary sent by the king to accompany them on their quest to prevent the war. The emissary happens to be a sexy-looking nerdy knight girl named Alicia. Hearing that she is an imperial knight, they were all shocked since they had thought that only men of extreme talent and very high standing could be allowed to become imperial knights. Just then, she states that she knows Rem is worried about something, which makes Diablo worried that she might know about the demon in Rem. However, when Rem asks her why she would think so, she reveals that it was only a guess. After that, she hands Sylvie a bag of money to be used for the reparations of the adventurers she lost in the last battle with the Fallen. Then she easily strokes a friendship with Shira and assures her that she will do her best to make sure she never has to return to the Elf Kingdom. Upon observing her, Diablo is shocked at how well her communicative abilities are, looking at how she has gained everyone's trust in a short time. Meanwhile, she approaches Diablo and thanks him for his heroic deeds of defending the city against the army of Fallen. Also, she promises to stay and be of help to him whenever he needs her. Since he was so bad at communicating, Diablo brashly replies by commanding her to talk to him more carefully if she values her life, In response, Alicia simply apologizes, promising not to repeat such a mistake again. They all leave the mansion and are walking through the city when Rem wonders why they are not heading to the forests now to face the elves. In response, Diablo reveals that he wants to get a new staff to use in battle, since he is way too powerful for the residents of this world, and wouldn't meant to harm anyone unknowingly in the heat of battle. Shortly after, he ends up buying a huge staff resembling the scythe of the Grim Reaper. After acquiring his new weapon, they head back into the city and are on their way to complete their quest when Shira runs ahead of them in excitement. Suddenly, someone throws a smoke bomb and kidnaps Shira. Hearing her scream, Diablo immediately uses his staff to clear the smoke, and surprisingly sees her being carried away by two petite-sized friends of Snow White. They happen to be bounty hunters who have kidnapped her in order to claim the bounty ocased on her by her evil brother. He tries to pursue them, but is blocked by two others. Not in the mood for such shenanigans, Diablo blasts them into a wall. Just then, another tries to attack him from behind with an axe, but Alicia steps in to block the attack with her sword and strikes him away. The last of them is seen hiding in a corner by Rem, who wastes no time in punching him to the great beyond. With all of them down, Diablo resumes his pursuit of the kidnappers who had taken Shira. He charges behind them at incredible speed, but they somehow seem to be faster than him. Just when they thought they have lost him, they get stopped by Emil, the defender of women. He strikes them easily and saves Shira. He rounds up all the bounty hunters and Shira thanks him for this. He asks Diablo to leave the bounty hunters to him while they continue on their quest. While he leads with them, Diablo instructs Shira not to ever leave his side. Due to the issue with Shira's kidnap, they all are too exhausted to go ahead with their plans to meet with the elves. Due to this, they postpone the plan until the next day. While they talk, Alicia's stomach begs him to grumble, and they realize that she must be very hungry, so they all decide to go and get something to eat. The next morning, Sils arrives with her underlings at the guild and has breakfast with Diablo and his party. She informs him that she might have a lead on the Slade collars and how to remove them. On hearing this, they are surprised at this sudden development. When they seek further explanation, she reveals that recently there has been a Slade caravan that has been put up which will leave the city in a couple of days. She claims that the owner of the caravan happens to be a master in Slade collars and might be able to help them. Diablo starts thinking about this proposition since he has to go to the forest to deal with the elves. However, as much as the slave collar problem is very important, Alicia tells him that their priority should be the issue with the Elf Kingdom and preventing the war. Still, Diablo believes that defeating the elves is very easy and won't take much time. Therefore, he decides to go and get the slave collars removed first. He takes all of them into the town, and they find a huge caravan and is about to enter it when he gets cold feet. He starts thinking about the slave markets that he has seen in the manga with a lot of sexy-looking bitches. They could heed his clapping call whenever he pleased. After spending his time fantasizing about this, he entered the tent. To his greatest surprise, the slaves in there seem to be living the good life as he finds them drinking tea, talking and laughing. While still observing them and swelling in his own disappointment, a lady with big personality walks up to them. She asks Diablo if he wishes to buy any slaves. Just before he could respond to that, she sets her eyes on Rem and Shira in collars and assumes that he has come to sell them. She tells him that if he wants to sell these beauties, she would be happy to buy them for an exceptional price. Diablo, however, tells her that they are not slaves. Immediately, she notices the incredible flow of magic power within Diablo and how no one should dare anger him. This surprises him, as he wonders what the f*** she is talking about. However, Shira goes on to reveal that she can also see the incredible flow of magic coming out of Diablo. Hearing this, Rem wonders why she never said anything, but Shira says that she never asked. Getting to their reason for coming here, they hand her the letter given by Sels. Seeing it, she realizes that they are here to find a way to remove the enslavement collars on the girls. However, she tells them that she has never worked on reflected magic. But since Silas has sent them, she promises to try to help. At that moment, she notices a powerful flow of magic in Rem too, and assumes she is pregnant with a demon. This shocks Rem to the bones as she thinks her cover is blown. Although hearing this, Shira thinks Diablo is responsible for this and tries to remember when they did the deed. Before things got out of proportion, Diablo orders the woman to shut the fuck up and do what they have come here for. Since she almost had her cover blown, Rem doesn't feel comfortable staying there and asks to be allowed to step outside, and Alicia offers to watch over her. Before leaving, Rem asks Shira if she could also see the massive flow of energy in her too, and she reveals that she could but didn't say anything because she assumed that Rem was a powerful adventurer. After they are gone, Diablo is given the task of finding Shira's magic flow in order to release her slave collar. To do this, Shira is made to wear her bath suit, which makes Diablo uncomfortable. The slave trader instructs him to touch her skin, but he is so scared that he uses the tip of his finger, which has little effect. To give it the Kutch needed effect, he is instructed to touch her at her most sensitive part, and let his magic flow into her while he searches for the core of her magic. Eventually, he summons the courage to let some of his magic come in her. However, since it was too complicated, Diablo had to quit. They all return back to the guild where he seems to be totally exhausted. While Rem and Alicia offer their sympathies, he claims that he finally learned how to see the flow of magic, but it is too complex for him, and he can't figure out how to deal with it. Since it is time to sleep, Rem asks Alicia where she's going to sleep, and she tells them that she has rented the room next to theirs. Before she could leave the room, however, a sound of flute started playing. Rem thinks that the tune is melodic, but Shira seems to be incredibly scared as she gets up from her chair sweating and shaking. Suddenly, the door opens and an elf wielding a flute walks in. Shira is shocked to see him and refers to him as her brother. Everyone is shocked to know about this new development, since they haven't even thought of a way to end the war yet. He introduces himself as Kira, Shira's older brother and the crown prince of the Elven Kingdom. He informs Shira that he has come to take her back home since everyone is very worried about her. On hearing this, Shira starts shaking and backs off, and Diablo gets enraged. He walks in Kira's face threateningly and asks him if he was the clueless bastard who put a bounty on Shira. In response, Kira lies through his teeth, claiming that he simply wanted to be sure that Shira was with a man who could take care of her and protect her. Furthermore, he apologizes for any problems that it might have created. Just then, Alicia brings up the war that has been declared by the Elf Kingdom, but he replies that he has no intentions of going to war with the humans, claiming that the war was declared by his father, who was just very worried about his daughter. Diablo starts thinking that maybe he is telling the truth, but Shira believes that her brother is not acting like himself since he usually is not this calm. Alicia backs her up, saying that she believes he's trying an alternate measure to get her to return to the kingdom since he failed the last time with the bounty hunters. Just then, Kira claims that he was way too engrossed in his kingdom, and with ruling so he never gave as much attention to Shira as she deserves. He promises to make amends and asks her to come back with him. At this point, Rem speaks up, stating that she doesn't know whether he is lying or not. According to her, what matters the most is what Shira wants. She states that Shira should get to decide whether she wants to stay here or go back to the Elf Kingdom. Suspiciously, Kira agrees and says that since Shira seems to be emotional at the moment, he will return the next day to ask about her decision. Once again, Diablo seeks to know whether he will continue with his declaration of war if her decision remains unchanged and she still wants to stay with him. But Kira immediately assures him that he would call off the war regardless of the decision Shira makes. He, however, asks Diablo the same question, seeking to know what he would do if Shira decides to come to the Elf Kingdom. In response, Diablo is confident that it will never happen. If it does, he will gladly let her leave. That night, Shira finds it hard to sleep. She looks outside of the window, worried. Shortly after, Rem wakes up, and they start talking about what happened earlier. She asks whether Shira trusts her brother's behavior today, but she replies that she has no idea whether her brother was lying or not. Rem seeks to know what her decision will be, and she replies that there is no way she's going back with her brother, promising to stay with her and Diablo no matter what. Furthermore, she tells Rem that her goal is to become an adventurer, and then to open a cafe which will serve a lot of food and drinks to other adventurers, so that she can hear all their stories. She says that once she opens her cafe, Rem can serve as a maid there while Diablo could serve as a bartender. While Rem loves this dream, she doesn't think she would be in the picture, since she is burdened by the problem of the demon lord inside her. Shira seeks to know if she can help with anything, but Rem replies that no one can help her in this regard. They decide to sleep for the night and begin a new day tomorrow. At this moment, Kira stands at the top of a tree inside of the forest playing his flute and laughing at the diabolical plan that he has put in place to make Shira return with him and birth his heir. The following morning, Alicia and Rem come into Diablo's room. There, Rem informs him that she is going to inform Sylvia and Celestine about what Prince Kira did the previous day, while Alicia tells that she is going to report to Lord Galford, and Diablo agrees. However, they tell Shira to be careful, because Prince Kira will surely come back to hear her reply, and Diablo pledges to make sure he protects her. Then the two leave for their destinations, leaving Shira with Diablo. Shortly after, Diablo's set to begin making some potions he said is from his world, which makes Shira excited on hearing this. Surprisingly, he seems to be having problems making the potions as they don't seem like the ones he knows about. But Shira asks him if she could watch him. At this moment, Diablo lifts up his head to look at her, but gets struck by the magnificent sight of her huge cannons before him. Seeing this, he starts to rant to himself about cannons as he watches Shira's jiggle, until she shouts excitedly and he realizes he has finished making a potion unconsciously, thanks to his master combiner ability. As a perv, he decides to keep focusing on her dazzling cannons, while he makes the potions, and within a few seconds he has made quite a number of potions. Seeing this, Shira praises him for being so good, which makes him smile. At this moment, he realizes he has not smiled at anyone since he arrived in this world, and hopes he relates with everyone aside from being a demon lord. Then he tells her he hopes he is able to smile like this with her forever, which she finds hard to believe and tries to tell him something. Suddenly, a familiar flute sound is heard, and Shira's eyes go blank at that moment. Having heard the sound, Diablo remembers it to be the same they heard the previous day, and he looks out the window to confirm, only for him to see Kira on a carriage. Then he turns to Shira, who is already by the door, and she tells him she is going back home to the Kingdom of Greenwoods, as it is time for her to return home to help her kingdom instead of wasting her time on unimportant things. Hearing this, Diablo is very shocked as he tries to stop her, reminding her about her best friend, Rem, but she tells him what's more important is her going to meet her brother. Yet, Diablo refuses to believe her as he goes after her, but she is welcomed by Kira, who helps her to get on the carriage. There, Kira reminds Diablo of their agreement to respect Shira's decision and proceeds to leave the vicinity with her. Dumbfounded, Diablo watches in despair as the carriage leaves. He stands there in sadness and lost in his thoughts till Alicia and Rem, who has just arrived from their destinations, calls him out of it. He tells them about what happened and just walks sadly back into the house to sleep. In his room, Diablo is so down that he lays in his bed thinking about Shira and begins to cry. Later that day, Rem comes into his room and sits by the bed to talk to him. There, she asks if he isn't planning on saving Shira, but does not respond. However, Rem tells him about the dream Shira had and shared with her the previous night, and both she and Diablo are present in it. Then she says that it seems Shira was enchanted by a spell, which makes Diablo finally break his silence as he agrees with her on this. He tells her about the flute sound he heard when Kira arrives, and it was at that moment that Shira changed, therefore it is possible the flute possesses some kind of magic powers, but he has no way to prove it. However, Rem tells him she believes in Shira as she gets up to leave. At the door, Rem tells him she is going to get Shira back at all costs and asks what he is going to do. Hearing this, Diablo remembers he doesn't want to be hurt like he has been before, and asks why she wants to save Shira, which she says is because Shira is her friend. At this moment, Diablo has a flashback of Shira being a true friend to them and decide to help save her. Alicia also comes into the room and tells them of her interest in going to save Shira too, even though she is not supposed to leave her duty as an Imperial Knight. Then they set out to go save Shira at the Elbenkamp forest. Meanwhile, at Kira's tent in the forest, he has Shira chained by the hand while he plays the mysterious flute. Soon he proceeds to ask what kind of orders Diablo gives her as his slaves, but she tells him he does it except once when he tells her to shake hands with Rem. Hearing this, he thinks she is lying and begins to tell her would teach her body whom she truly belongs to. Suddenly, an explosion happens in the forest and Kira immediately uses this opportunity to unleash a fabric-eating slime to get rid of her clothes. Soon, the slimes gets a hold of her body and begins to do their job, while Shira cries for help as the slime sensation burns into her skin. At that moment, Diablo and the girls arrive behind them, surprising them. Diablo sets Shira free from the chains and slimes, while Kira wonders where his guards are, which makes Diablo ask if he has not heard the loud noises since. On getting outside to check what must have happened, Kira is shocked to see the forest on fire, while his guards have also been brutally injured by Diablo and the girls. Seeing this, Kira tells Diablo he is looking for war for what he has done to his elf guards, but Diablo tells him he is only there to confirm something, which is if Shira truly wishes to go home, because he knows Kira enchanted her into doing what he wants. Then, Diablo asks Shira to tell how she really feels, but unfortunately again, Kira snaps his finger and enchants her into saying she wants to go home. Diablo, who knows what is going on, orders her as her master to tell exactly how she is feeling. Suddenly, the enslavement collar around her neck emits a very strong light which nullifies Kira's influence on her. Then, Shira tells them the truth, which is that she wants to be free and stay with Doblo and Rem for the rest of her life. Seeing this, Kira becomes very furious and brings out a crystal, which is the Elven's most dangerous summon, Force Hydra. Suddenly, he drops the crystal to summon the monster, which causes a very powerful light and wind to unleash. Soon, a four-headed monster appears magnificently before them. Seeing the monster, Diablo is surprised as he realizes Cross Reverie never has a summon like this, but yet he is determined to defeat it. Scared, Shira tells him the summon had been in the royal family for generations as a guardian deity. Therefore, it is impossible to defeat it because of how strong it is. However, the overconfident demon lord decides to take on the monster by himself by using one of his skills of falling rocks to attack the monster, which chops off one of its heads. Meanwhile, when he thinks the monster is weak, the chopped head regenerates back to its form, surprising everyone.
What the hell?
Suddenly, the Force Hydra monster attacks Diablo by taking a very strong wind from its mouth, which sends him tumbling. However, Diablo realizes the dragon breath is an elemental attack, and no magic reflection and physical damage reduction can activate against. At that moment, the four dragon heads release their various elements, which is ice, sand, wind, and fire at Diablo, who manages to escape the attack. Seeing this, Diablo believes the monster must have a weakness, and tries to figure it out until Shira yells behind that the Force Hydra monster possesses a core somewhere in its body, which if destroyed, the monster will disappear back into its crystal. Surprised that Shira knows this, Kira tells Diablo it would not be easy to kill the monster, because the core moves within its body. Yet, Diablo takes it upon himself to defeat the monsters as he dodges its attack and slides underneath it. He chants a powerful spell that electrifies the monster and blows off its entire body along with its core, defeating it. The girls come out of hiding and commends Diablo's efforts, while Kira is shocked and wonders who Diablo really is. As a proud shit that he is, he boasts of himself as usual, as the demon lord from another world that no one can control. But then, Kira does not believe him, and Diablo decides that he will pay for his actions with his life, as he tries to attack him. Meanwhile, one of his guards who escaped the attack on them sees his master about to be attacked and runs to protect him, while Shira stops Diablo to please spare Prince Kira. Surprised at Shira's reaction, Diablo asks if she is still under the spell, but she tells him she is not. However, she tells him she hates Kira so much, but then he is still her family, which makes Diablo spare him. Hearing this, Prince Kira leaves the scene and flees into the forest, but suddenly a sword flashes, and at that moment, Prince Kira's head falls off his body. Seeing this, everyone is shocked, as Shira screams in agony. Suddenly, the unseen hand that killed Prince Kira reveals itself, and it happens to be Lord Galford, Lord of Faltra and his armies. There, he tells Diablo the war started from the moment the prince sent his troop into another nation's territory. Therefore, he instructs his army to kill the remaining elven guard in the forest, capture Shira, the princess, and kill anyone that tries to interfere. Diablo confronts him for using him to fight the elves so he can take over Greenwood from the start. Realizing that Diablo wants to interfere, Galford captures him with a cage-like spell, which he says is a ritual magic made to capture large monsters, and Diablo cannot seem to get out of it. However, Alice comes forward to challenge Galford as a way to stop him from hurting others, but within a twinkle of an eye, her sword gets broken in half like Galford, surprising everyone, as Diablo realizes how fast and strong he is. However, Diablo, who knows he has to protect the girls, tries to sense the flow of the cage spell, which he eventually unravels and sets himself free, surprising Galford. Diablo confronts Galford again for using Jim's fight the elves, but gets mocked instead, which makes Diablo promise to make him face despair that he won't be able to insult home or mock him again. Soon, Diablo begins by attacking him, but Galford dodges it as he attempts to attack Diablo with his very fast speed, which he tries as much as possible to dodge, but still gets a few cuts on him. The fights continue as Diablo uses different skills on Galford, who commends him on being a strong opponent. Then he lays traps for Galford, using an explosive technique, and also tries to trap him with an ice spell. Surprisingly, Galford breaks free and uses the opportunity to outsmart Diablo, by suddenly charging to attack him, until Diablo immediately uses a magic spell to blast him off. However, Galford gets up again weakly to fight, but Diablo seems to be done with that and finds a way to intimidate him into leaving him alone. Eventually, he decides to talk down on him as being weak, which has made him lose interest in fighting with him again, as he is not a match for him. Hearing this, Galford, who is now a pained motherfucker, promises to give a disadvantageous report about Diablo to the king, but Alicia tells she would not allow that, as she would report that he too does things with the intention of destroying their peaceful relationship with the surrounding nations. Hearing this, Galford tells them to kill him, but Diablo refuses and tells him to go die on his own. Therefore, he warns her not to come close to him or his possessions again, or he would make sure he destroys him. However, Galford leaves with his army and Rem comes to commend him, asking him to give her healing potions for the wounded elves in the forest, and he does. Meanwhile, Shara feels bad about Kira's demise, as she goes to where he lies and begins to cry about how she never thought they could part ways like this. Days later after the incident, while Diablo is in bed, thinking about the fact that his magic point is so low, and they are broke because he beat Galford, who was their client, they didn't get their reward. At that moment, he hears a knock on the door, and Sylvie comes in with an alcoholic wine she brought for him. However, after drinking a cup of the alcohol, Diablo begins to misbehave as he drags Sylvie with him to the bed, thinking she is a pillow. The drunk idiot begins to sink his head into her cannons. While at it, he loses her dress and begins to run his hand around her thigh, causing her to make happy noises. Meanwhile, the supposed innocent Sylvie thinks he is trying to have a nice time with her, but realizes he has fallen asleep and begins to yell that he should have let go of her first before sleeping. One day at the Imperial Capital Castle, Alicia meets with a young man who happens to be a paladin with the name Sadler. Meanwhile, she has heard about him going to a village in the south and asks how things went there, and he tells that everyone in the village found salvation, which means he killed all of them. Hearing this, Alicia wonders why he hates the mortal race so much, and he tells her he does not, but cannot forgive those who worship the demon lord. However, Alicia decides to take her leave back to Faltra, which makes him also tell he would be heading to Faltra soon as well. He tells her that the head priest called Lumachina revealed a prophecy that the demon lord is going to be revised in the western city, which is Faltra. Therefore, he has to investigate it, considering his job. On the other hand, Diablo together with Shara and Rem are in a forest, while Shara tries to use a summon spell. Fortunately, the spell works and she is able to summon a bird called Turkey Shot, which has the power to help the summoner see whatever it sees. However, Shara decides to have it regardless since it can be of help when she gets lost. Then she tries to make an enslavement ritual with the summon, using a magic stone used to forge a pact in the ritual, which he gives Diablo one too. She however performs the ritual by putting the stone in her mouth and kisses the bird, even though she doesn't feel happy about the summon. But Diablo encourages her and tries to show her the bird's ability. To do this, he throws a coin far away from them and allows the bird to spot it, which it did. Since she is able to see things from the bird's view, Diablo tells her to shoot an arrow at the coin, and she successfully did excitedly. Then, Diablo tells her she will be able to shoot the enemies from a far distance with the help of the summon, which she finds incredibly useful. Suddenly, it seems like the bird is saying something to her as she tries to listen. Then, she turns to Rem and asks why she did not take her bath, because she stinks so bad,
emotional damage,
making that girl yell that she is not smelling. However, Shara comes up with an idea to save the day, which is for them to bathe together. Getting to a stream, Diablo realizes the girls are bathing within swimsuits and begins to feel uncomfortable about this. He insists on staying aside by sitting behind a rock, even though Shara tries to convince him to join them. Suddenly, while the girls take their baths, Diablo hears Rem scream, and when he looks back, he sees Edelgard holding her hostage, as she asks if Rem has fallen. Seeing Diablo, she drops Rem and tells him she has only come to talk, because she heard Rem has fallen, and she has confirmed that after touching her. At that moment, she tells them she senses the demon lord's soul in Rem, shocking everyone. Hearing this, Diablo begins to wonder how she is able to sense demon lord Krebskalm within Rem, while Shara asks Rem about what they have just heard. Ashamed, Rem discloses that the demon lord Krebskalm's soul is sealed inside her. She apologizes for not telling Shara about it because she does not want her to bear the weight of so much secret too. Hearing this, Shara hugs her emotionally and tells her she would always want to help her in times of trouble since they are friends. However, Edelgard promises not to kill Rem because the demon lord is delicate and they cannot just break the vessel. Also, this is because Rem would be seen as the mother of the demon lord, even though she is supposed to kill her when she finds out about this secret. Then, Diablo asks if she knows how they can revive the demon lord, which she tells him she does, and the process would have no negative effect on Rem. She decides to teach them the necessary ritual to revive the demon, so that the Fallens would not have to harm her. Diablo agrees to this, and tells them he would make sure he defeats the monsters after its revival, even though Edelgard does not believe in him, but he promises to prove her wrong. However, to get this all done, Edelgard tells him to meet her on the night of the full moon at the Starfall Tower in 3 days' time, where the ritual would take place, and he agrees. Finally, it is the afternoon of the D-Day in a restaurant until suddenly Alicia arrives. She tells them she has just arrived from the imperial capital and advises they head back to the inn because the paladin Sadler is in the town and he believes they are demon lord worshippers. Unfortunately, on their way back to the inn, they bump into Sadler and his underling, who introduces himself to the Diablo and the girls. But since being a dumbass is his profession, Diablo introduces himself by boasting to be a demon lord, even though he already plans within himself to act like he is sensible for the sake of their plan at night. Hearing this, Sadler finds it funny, but yet, he can't overlook the fact that Demon Lord was mentioned as he tries to attack Alicia. Suddenly, at that moment, Rem decides to interfere, but Sadler uses his spell on her, putting her in a lot of pain. Seeing this, Diablo recognizes that Sadler is using magic powers and proceeds to insult him for using a spell, calling him a small fry, which makes him relieve Rem of the pain. Angry that Diablo is looking down on him, Sadler proceeds to attack him with a petrification spell, but Diablo uses a magic reflection spell, which makes Sadler get struck by his own spell as he turns into a stone, surprising everyone. Seeing this, Alicia asks if the spell will wear off, and Diablo tells her it depends on the caster's ability, while Sadler's subordinates carry him away with them. Later that day, when it is almost time for them to go meet Edelgard at the Starfall Tower, Diablo comes into the room to meet the girls, as Rem tells them it would be fair to tell Alicia about what is going on because he is a friend too. But Diablo seems to be against this, since it is forbidden that she overlooks the revival of the Demon Lord as an imperial knight that she is. However, to his surprise, Alicia understands the situation and promises to help Rem in any way she can, making the 3 girls feel emotional. Even with everything Alicia said, Diablo still feels something is not right. At night, they arrive at the Starfall Tower and meet Edelgard there already, and she tells them she has made preparations for the ritual. At that moment, Alicia also arrives, and Diablo introduces her, but Edelgard seems not to be bothered about her, which makes Diablo feel more uneasy. However, the ritual begins as Edelgard tells Rem to lay on a stone-like bed, and Diablo would need to transmit strong magic powers into the Demon Lord's soul through her body. This method of ritual is said to hasten the Demon Lord resurrection. Rem does not seem to trust Edelgard because she is a fallen, but she decides to go ahead with the ritual so as to be free from Krebskalm. They begin the ritual as Diablo places his hand on Rem's stomach and transmits magic powers into, making her shout in pain as light emits. Then he stops after realizing he has hit the Demon Lord core in her. But to their surprise, Edelgard tells him he is not even close to the core because the Demon Lord's soul is deeply in her body. To get things done properly, she tells him to make a hole in Rem's stomach, but Shira refuses because Rem would die if he does so. As an alternative, Edelgard shockingly tells Diablo to insert his fingers in Rem's floodgate, which makes everyone's jaw drop. Hearing this, the dumbass demigod begins to feel uneasy, as he believes his rotten mind is not ready for such pleasure. However, Rem implored him to do it if that's what he has to do. At that moment, he decides to do it, causing her to make happy noises while he transmits magic power into her. During this, Diablo tries as much as possible to concentrate, and within a few seconds, he is able to find the Demon Lord's soul in her and infuse his utmost power to release it from Rem. Suddenly, a very strong demon mana is released from Rem, as the Demon Lord can be seen laughing mysteriously as it leaves her body. Seeing this, Edelgard and Alicia are awfully pleased that the Demon Lord has been resurrected, while Rem tells Diablo to make sure he defeats the monster. All of a sudden, to everyone's surprise, the Demon Lord transforms into a young girl.
What?
Edelgard welcomes the Demon Lord Krebskalm, but Diablo finds it hard to believe and asks if she truly is Krebskalm, and she confirms he is. Having promised he is going to defeat her, Diablo makes his ground to defeat her, and Krebscomb, who is angry that he wakes her up from her sleep, gets enraged in powerful manner, as he promised to kill him. But to everyone's surprise, she seems to have lost her memories as she cannot remember how to fight, leaving them in disbelief. Realizing this herself, she promises to turn everything to ashes instead, but Shira tells her not to, and she believes she actually should not do something that bad since she has been not she should not. Seeing this, Rem asks why the demon lords kill the mortals, but Krebscomb seems to have forgotten why and tells them she would stop killing them since she cannot remember why mortals are being killed in the first place. Hearing this, everyone is shocked, while Alicia feels so uneasy because this is not what she wants to hear from the girl. But Edelgard tells her, if that is what the demon lord wants, then so be it. At that moment, Krebscomb tells them she is hungry, and Shira gives her biscuits she has on her. Having taken a bite of it, Krebscomb gets so excited and fond of how delicious the biscuits are. Then, all of a sudden, while showing her excitement, she tells them she remembers her mission now, which is to eat all the biscuits in the world. However, Krebscomb decides to go with them to the city to have more biscuits, which after so much consideration they agree to take her with them. On their way, while Rem talks to Diablo that there is no need for him to fight Krebscomb again since she is no longer going to kill the mortal race. Suddenly at that moment, Alicia spots a figure flying in their direction. Having landed, the person who happens to be a fallen bow and introduces himself to Krebscomb as Ulrix, the one who has served the demon lords since the one before the previous one. He tells her he has been waiting for her resurrection and would like to make sacrifices to her by kill off Diablo and the girls who are mortals. Hearing this, Krebscomb angrily tells him not to do so, because if he does, she would not be able to eat biscuits again. Surprised at this, Ulrix wonders what is going on with the Krebscomb. Then he concludes that she is an incomplete demon lord and needs to be reincarnated again as he suddenly tries to attack her. At that moment, Edelgard stops him, saying that the wish of the demon lord is more important than what they want, but he declines by pushing her off him before advancing to punch her hard in the stomach. Seeing this, Diablo wants to interfere, but tell the girls he would not go so close them, because Ulrix is said to be strongest fallen, but he promises to end the fight as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Ulrix is busy squeezing Edelgard's head, where he insults her of being unable to awaken the demon lord completely. Suddenly, he senses an attack and throws Edelgard off, while he quickly dodges the attack by flying off from the attack. Diablo charges at him. Angrily, he charges at Diablo as well, who set a magical mine trap for him that explodes when he steps on it. Suddenly, Ulrix attacks Diablo in the midst of the smoke with a magical glass spear, but Diablo uses his magic reflection ability on him, making the spear pierce him in the shoulder. Seeing this, Ulrix recognizes the reflection magic, which he believes belongs to the Inferos, the demon lord of mind, whom Diablo defeated in the game. Knowing he cannot defeat Diablo, Ulrix proceeds to attack Krebscomb, instead with the intention of killing her, but Rem quickly saves her by pushing her out of the way. Diablo attacks him so hard, which makes Ulrix himself agree to the fact that the dumbass is indeed powerful. Considering how powerful Diablo is, he decides to run for his miserable life by turning into a bird and flies away. Seeing this, Alicia approaches him to ask if it is safe to let Ulrix go, and he tells her he has nothing to do with him, as what is important is for him to protect the girls. However, Diablo decides to take Krebscomb with them to the city, and because of the problems they are prone to face if her name is being mentioned in the city, Shira decides to come up with a suitable name for her, Clem. Getting to the inn with Shira and Clem, Diablo is so exhausted that he falls into the bed, panting like a damn loser that he is. Shira tells Clem he is like this because he has used up his magic powers, and to help him replenish this, Shira undresses herself and climbs up on him. However, she invited Clem to join them, as she can also regain her strength through this, making the pathetic Diablo feel uncomfortable. Soon, the two girls begin to massage his body with their freaky body again, using their nice cannons. During this, they are able to transmit energy into each other, while the girls make happy noises as they feel the loser's energy pouring into them. Finally, the girls hit the spot and sleep off after Diablo is able to fully recover his MP. Meanwhile, in her room, Alicia thinks of the need for Clem to eliminate the entire mortal race, which is to create a beautiful world. On the other hand, Sadler is able to transform back into human and promises to make Diablo and the girls face his wrath. The following morning, Diablo and the girls take Clem to a restaurant for breakfast, where he gets to enjoy her biscuits. There, Diablo meets with Celestine, whom he tells about Clem, and she seems to be okay with her around since she does not have the personality of the demon lord they all fear. On their way back to the inn, Diablo and Shira realize that Alicia, Rem, and Clem are no longer with them, and they go to the inn, thinking they are there, but alas, they are not. Diablo, however, decides to go search for them, while Shira waits in the inn in case they arrive there. He sets out too and begins to search for them around the city, searching from one alley to the other, while he also feels uneasy like something bad is about to happen. Meanwhile, Alicia is busy taking Rem and Clem through a dark and lonely alley, when suddenly, she asks why Clem has to miss her memories because a fallen priest tells her it takes more than magic powers to resurrect the demon lord. Surprisingly, she asks what they have to do to awaken the demon lord, making Rem realize her intention is to have the mortal race killed, and she confirms that is her exact motive. However, the god-forsaken Betrayal bitch shows no interest in pretending to be their friends anymore, but Clem tells her she is in her perfect and complete form, as there is nothing more left to do. Alicia reveals how much she hates the mortal race and wishes Clem can just kill them all, and make the world beautiful, shocking Rem with her words. Rem finds out she is a betrayal of the mortal race, and before she could do anything, Sadler and his subordinates arrive behind her. There, Alicia gives Rem and Clem away by lying that they are demon lord worshippers, knowing that Sadler would not spare them. Angrily, Rem summons a three-horned beast to attack Sadler and his subordinates, but unfortunately, they get hold of it while Sadler kills it. Seeing this, Rem charges at Sadler to attack him, but he magically stops her midair, inflicting her with pain. At that moment, Alicia approaches Rem from behind and whispers that all Clem needs is hatred, and she would be resurrected again, and Rem loses consciousness at that moment. Moments later, Rem finally gains consciousness after a dozen calls of her name by Clem, and finds out they are locked up in a cage on a moving carriage. In the cage, Clem appreciates Rem for her loyalty in saving her, even though she heard she has made her go through hardship for a long time. Hearing this, Rem tells her she is not loyal, because Clem has always been her worst enemy, but she doesn't know why she is protecting her now. Clem feels sorry for her that she is the cause of her pains, and they both seem to have a bond together, which makes Rem promise not to allow Alicia to have a way to make sure they return to the others safely. Clem tells her to allow her to destroy the enemies, but Rem makes her promise her not to do anything like that. Finally, they arrive at the church, where Rem sees different torturing tools and tries to tell them of innocence, but Sadler is ready to buy none of that. Alicia leaves them in the church and leaves, leaving Sadler to do his job. It is night already, and Diablo's useless self still finds it hard to locate the young girls. He searches every nook and cranny of the city, but could not find them, while he keeps having a bad thought about all this. While looking for them, he hears a loud chattering noise from the guild and enters there, hoping he finds them inside, only for him to find Emily and Sylvie in there. Being a proud loser that he is, Diablo finds it hard to ask them for help because of the type of idiot he is in ordering people around, which makes him believe they would not help him. However, while he struggles to talk to them, luckily for him, a young boy runs to report that he sees Rem and a young girl being taken to the church in the North District by the Paladins. Hearing this, Diablo thanks the boy and runs out with the aim of getting to the church before the unexpected happens. Meanwhile, the Fallens are being spotted waiting outside the city for the demon lord to be resurrected by Galford, who orders that Celestine be told to protect the barrier at all cost. On the other hand, Sadler begins to torture Rem by cutting her ear and also stabs her in the shoulder. Watching this, Clem gets and promises to kill off on Rem's order, but yet she tells her not to do anything. While Clem tries to stop him from doing anything more, Sadler tries to attack her with his sword, which causes Clem's identity to be revealed as a Fallen, shocking the Paladins. Because of his hatred for Fallens, Sadler attempts to attack Clem with his sword, but at that moment, Rem gets loose from her bondage and quickly shields Clem by getting cut on her behalf, and they both fall to the ground. While Ragna lies helplessly on the ground, Sadler walks up to her and stabs her with 4 swords, sending her to her ancestors. Witnessing this, Clem loses control of herself as she is enraged with hatred, screaming in agony as she transforms into the demon lord. She ends up turning the paladin into ashes and blows of the church as well in anger. Meanwhile, Diablo, who is on his way to the place, spots the explosion and runs towards it. At that moment, Shira also arrives and tells him she is able to locate Rem with her summon, and sadly breaks the news that she is dead. Hearing this, Diablo knows he has to get Clem back to herself and hands over the healing potions to Shira to go save Rem, while he takes on the demon lord. Meanwhile, on seeing that the demon lord has resurrected, Edelgard, alongside Uralex and the other Fallens, cheers with excitement, and at that moment sees Alicia approaching them. Seeing her, Uralex wonders what a mortal is doing in their midst, and Edelgard discloses to him that Alicia is the brain behind their just acquired success. Alicia is glad that it is time for the mortal race to perish and end this ugly world. However, while Lord Galford is in a dilemma as to the Fallens outside the city and the demon lord at the church, Sylvie arrives. She tells him not to go to the church because Diablo is already getting a hold of things there, and she would not like them to get in his way. On the other hand, the demon lord begins to rush multiple attacks at Diablo, who tries as much as possible to dodge it all. Also, Diablo is trying to be careful not to do anything that would affect the city by creating magical trap patterns for him. Suddenly, the demon lord realizes this and unleashes a very strong mana called Darkness, breathed from her mouth on Diablo, who quickly activates a spell to shield himself, because if not, he would be turned into burnt fries. Without giving the demigod a breathing space, the demon lord attacks him again, but he is wise enough to use the magic reflection spell again. But to his surprise, she appears from the midst of the smoke to attack him, but he is able to dodge it again luckily. While this goes on, Shira is busy trying to wake Rem by giving her all the healing potion, but yet she does not wake up. But fortunately, after a loud explosion, she comes back to life, making Shira very happy that she has her friend back. Shira asks what happened and Rem tells her they have been betrayed by Alicia, who now works with the Fallens to resurrect the demon lord by using her as a tool. At that moment, she realizes Diablo is fighting without any healing potion on him, as he has given up everything to make sure she comes back to life. Diablo, however, continues to battle with the demon lord, who sends a huge rock toward the girls, but luckily, Emil arrives to shield them and takes the hit, feeling like a superhero, and also escorts them out of the place. Finally, Diablo is able to complete a circular magic trap around her, and uses his grand magic spell, which is very powerful. Successfully, he is able to defeat the demon lord, but gets surprised as she stands up again to fight injured. At that moment, Shira and Rem call out to her, where Rem tells her to stop fighting and come eat biscuits with them again. Now calm, the demon lord transforms back into Clem, who immediately hugs Rem and feels sad for breaking their promise, but Rem tells her everything is okay now. Meanwhile, Amal is surprised that the demon lord transforms into a young girl, and Diablo implores him not to disclose this with anyone, and he agrees. At that moment, Diablo feels like he wants to collapse, but he holds it in, trying to be the dumbass hero he is. The next morning, Diablo and the girls, together with Emil, are still at the fight scene where Sylvie comes to meet them. There, she tells them she cannot allow Clem to run around Faltra freely because she doesn't trust her, and it is her job to ensure the safety of the mortals as the master of the Adventurers Guild. Hearing this, Diablo thinks of a way to save Clem until he spots the slave collar on Shira and Rem's neck, and a plan comes to his mind. He proceeds to entice Clem with the thought of biscuit, and if she would like to stay in the city with Shira and Rem, which she agrees to after the girls convince her. However, Diablo proceeds to make the slave pact using the magic stone Shira gave him days back, and the idea of slavery is to leave her no choice than to follow his instruction and keep her out of trouble. Having witnessed this, Sylvie goes back to the imperial capital to report to Galford, whom she believes already knows what happened, and tells him they just have to keep a close eye on Diablo and the girls. At night, while in a room with the girls at the inn, and they all try to sleep, Alice suddenly comes in and holds Shira hostage with a knife on her neck. Seeing her, Clem gets angry and tells her she would tear into shreds. But then, Alicia tells them she can only leave except Clem helps her heal someone, since it is said that the demon lord can heal Fallens. Getting to the room where the sick person is, they find out it is Edelgard, who has been greatly injured by other Fallen, because their plan to resurrect the demon lord failed. To do this, Clem asks Diablo if she should help, and he encourages her to help them, and she heals Edelgard within a second. Edelgard, who regains consciousness, immediately goes to plead with Clem for what she did, and Clem forgives her. Seeing this, Alicia frees Shira and thanks Clem for kindness, and also tells her she is ready for any punishment she is to face. Confused, Rem asks why Alicia becomes a demon lord worshipper, and she tells her it is because she was surrounded with greedy, evil people all up, including her parents, and she does not see herself fit to be in the same world with them. Then she asks again if Clem is really not going to kill the mortal race, and she tells her she does not want to. Hearing this, Alicia decides to take her own life, because she feels so guilty for her actions by trying to stab herself with a knife. Immediately, Diablo uses magic to make the knife fade away from her hand, saving her, and also talks some senses into her, becoming a moral lesson advisor. He advises her to be herself and not live her life based on what happened, which makes him seem like a sensible demigod. At that moment, he suddenly staggers, which he says is so because he has exhausted his MP. Hearing this, Shira and Clem excitedly decide to charge him up, and the other also decides to join in too. They begin to pull off their clothes, revealing their freaky bodies with small and large cannons bouncing towards him.
Oh my god! Wow!
While they rush to him, the pathetic idiots faints on seeing the nice figures before him. What a loser. If you have watched this recap till now, type clapping fest in the comments. Subscribe and check out other videos. You'll definitely enjoy the story of Rudy, a stupid and ugly loner, who gets reincarnated in the body of a baby with addiction to huge melons. He is reborn with the ability to learn powerful magic and makes a harem for himself. Unfortunately, he can't explore his fantasies because his magnum doesn't let him. Want to know more? Check out our last recap and find out. Love, like, and subscribe so we can keep bringing you entertaining recaps.